Have you ever felt invisible in your own marriage? That's where I find myself right now, grappling with the unsettling suspicion that my wife doesn't respect the career I've poured my heart into for years. It's not about the money or the prestige. It's about feeling valued and understood by the person I love the most. As I navigate this emotional maze, I can't help but wonder how we got here and what it means for our future. Is this just a rough patch or something deeper? Here's how it all started. I'm a 34-year-old graphic designer, married for 7 years to my wonderful wife Sarah, who's 32 and works as a project manager for a tech firm. Our lives seem to fit together perfectly, like a well-designed puzzle. We met in college, shared dreams of building a life where creativity and innovation were at the forefront, and somehow along the way we did just that. We have a cozy home, a lovable dog, and a network of supportive friends. But recently, I've felt a growing distance between us. Like a subtle but persistent background noise you can't quite pinpoint. My career has always been a huge part of my identity. It's not just a job, it's my passion, my creative outlet. However, over the past year, I've sensed an underlying tension whenever I talk about my work. It started with small things. Her dismissive comments about the hours I spend on projects, the lack of interest when I share my achievements, or her comparing my income to her own, which is significantly higher. Initially, I brushed it off as stress from her demanding job or maybe even my own overthinking. But as these incidents piled up, I began to feel marginalized, as if my contributions to our life together didn't matter. The realization crept in slowly, each instance chipping away at the confidence I once had in our mutual respect and understanding. Was this a sign of deeper issues in our relationship, or am I just projecting my insecurities? This question lingered, leaving me restless and searching for answers. As time went on, the chasm between Sarah and me grew wider, with small disagreements turning into silent dinners and tense evenings. I thought things might improve if we spent more quality time together, so I planned a weekend getaway to a quaint cabin in the woods, hoping it would give us the space to reconnect. However, the trip only highlighted the disconnect. Even surrounded by nature's tranquility, we found ourselves drifting further apart. The real curveball came a few months later. Sarah received a promotion that required her to travel frequently. At first, I was thrilled for her success, but as the days of her absence turned into weeks, I noticed how her busy schedule left little room for us. Her phone calls were hurried, and video chats felt more like formal check-ins rather than intimate conversations. I found myself increasingly alone, both physically and emotionally, struggling to maintain a semblance of our once vibrant connection. The strain began to show in unexpected ways. I became more irritable at work, finding it difficult to focus on projects that once excited me. My creativity seemed stifled by the weight of unresolved issues at home. When I tried to share these feelings with Sarah, hoping to bridge the gap, it often led to misunderstandings and arguments, leaving us both frustrated and defensive. Then, a particularly intense argument erupted one evening after Sarah returned from a long trip. I had spent the day preparing a special dinner, hoping it would soften the edge of our recent tensions. Instead, it ended with Sarah saying, "I feel like you're not supporting my career," words that stung deeply, as if she had accused me of being unsupportive of the very thing I admired in her. This unexpected conflict made me realize how deep our communication problems had become. It wasn't just about my feeling of invisibility. She too felt neglected and misunderstood. The realization that we both were feeling unsupported in our respective careers was a heavy blow, compounding my fear and stress about our future together. In those moments of heightened tension, I felt a mix of confusion and frustration, unsure of how to navigate back to the partnership we once had. My mind raced with questions. Were we drifting apart because our careers had taken center stage? Could we find a balance that respected both our professional passions and our relationship? As I lay awake at night, these thoughts kept me restless, fueling a growing sense of urgency to address the problem before it became insurmountable. It was clear that something needed to change, but I wasn't sure where to start. Determined to save our relationship, I decided that open communication was the best way forward. I suggested we set aside time each week to talk, free from distractions, where we could express our feelings without judgment. Sarah agreed, albeit cautiously, and our first few sessions were enlightening, if a bit awkward. We both acknowledged how our careers had overshadowed our personal lives, and I realized that I hadn't fully appreciated the pressure she faced in her new role. To make sure I wasn't just spinning my wheels, I reached out to a close friend who had been through a similar rough patch in his marriage. He recommended a couples therapist, someone who had helped him and his wife navigate their own communication issues. The idea of therapy was daunting at first, but Sarah and I agreed that an objective perspective might be what we needed. Our sessions were challenging, often bringing up buried feelings that were hard to face, but they also provided a safe space to rebuild our understanding. Despite our efforts, another curveball hit us unexpectedly. Sarah's company announced a major restructuring, which meant her role could change or worse, be eliminated. This added layer of stress threatened to undo the progress we had made. As Sarah became understandably anxious about her future, her attention shifted even more towards work, and our weekly talks became sporadic. In response, I tried to be more supportive, taking on more responsibilities at home to give her space to manage her work crisis. However, this left me feeling stretched thin, struggling to balance my own workload with additional household duties. I found myself again feeling invisible, my efforts seemingly unnoticed amidst the chaos. Through it all, I tried to remind myself of the importance of patience and resilience. I began journaling, hoping to gain clarity and keep track of my thoughts and emotions. I also started meditating, seeking some inner peace amidst the turmoil. Yet the looming uncertainty about Sarah's job and our fragile relationship continued to weigh heavily on my mind. Despite the setbacks, I held on to the hope that these challenges could ultimately bring us closer, though the path to that outcome seemed increasingly convoluted. The realization that our relationship required continuous effort and adaptation was both daunting and enlightening. But I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. The ongoing tension with Sarah and the uncertainty surrounding her job situation began to take a significant toll on me, both emotionally and mentally. I found myself engulfed in a pervasive sense of loneliness, even when surrounded by colleagues and friends. It was as if a shadow had crept into every corner of my life, coloring my interactions and sapping the joy from activities I once loved. Work, which had always been a source of pride and creativity for me, started to feel burdensome. My mind often drifted, preoccupied with thoughts of what might be unraveling at home. This distraction led to mistakes and missed deadlines, something that was previously unheard of in my professional life. I noticed my coworkers giving me concerned looks, but I brushed off their inquiries, too embarrassed to admit the personal struggles I was facing. Socially, I withdrew from gatherings and events, making excuses to avoid explaining the strain in my marriage. The isolation was self-imposed, yet it felt like the safest place to be. I feared that sharing my struggles would expose a vulnerability I wasn't ready to confront publicly. This retreat from social life further deepened my feelings of isolation, creating a vicious cycle that seemed impossible to break. At home, the atmosphere was often tense and uncomfortable. Sarah and I moved around each other like strangers, careful not to touch the raw nerves that lay just beneath the surface. The silence between us was loud, filled with unspoken words and unresolved issues. Our once lively home felt more like a house of cards, precariously balanced and ready to fall at any moment. Internally, I wrestled with a storm of conflicting emotions: guilt for not being able to support Sarah the way she needed, frustration at the apparent futility of my efforts, and a deep-seated fear of losing the life we had built together. Hopelessness crept in during the quiet moments, whispering doubts about whether things could ever truly be mended. Despite the weight of these emotions, a flicker of determination remained, pushing me to keep trying, to believe that we could find a way through this darkness. Yet the path forward seemed obscured, and each step felt more daunting than the last. As I navigated this challenging period, I realized that this wasn't just a test of our relationship, but also of my resilience and capacity to adapt to life's unpredictabilities. With each passing day, the weight of our unresolved issues felt more unbearable. Despite my best efforts to bridge the gap between us, the disconnect seemed to only deepen, leaving me at a crossroads. I began to contemplate whether it was time to consider more drastic measures, something I had avoided thinking about for fear of what it might mean. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine what life might look like if Sarah and I took a break or even separated. The thought was terrifying, conjuring images of empty rooms and a quieter, emptier life. Yet, amidst the fear, there was also a whisper of relief, an escape from the constant emotional turmoil. I wondered if stepping back might give us the perspective needed to appreciate what we truly have, or had. But these thoughts were accompanied by a cascade of doubts. What if separation only widened the chasm, making reconciliation impossible? What about the social stigma of a failed marriage, the pitying looks from friends, and the questions from family? The fear of judgment loomed large, as did the potential loneliness of starting anew. Moreover, I feared the emotional toll of such a decision. Could I handle the heartbreak of walking away from the life we'd built together, the shared dreams now hanging by a thread? Was I ready to face the reality of those dreams dissolving into memories? These considerations left me feeling trapped between action and inaction, uncertain of which path would lead to healing. The thought of making such a life-altering decision was paralyzing, yet the status quo seemed equally unsustainable. As I weighed my options, the realization dawned that whatever decision I made would reshape the trajectory of our lives. Caught in this tumultuous internal debate, I found myself yearning for clarity, a sign or a moment of insight to guide my next steps, to help me understand whether drastic measures were truly the answer or just an escape from the uncertainty. Reflecting on this journey, I realize how profoundly these struggles have reshaped my life and my relationship with Sarah. The emotional turbulence has been exhausting, leaving me feeling both vulnerable and resilient. Despite everything, I still hold onto a flicker of hope that we can navigate this storm together and emerge stronger. Yet, the path forward remains unclear, and the fear of making the wrong decision looms large. I'm reaching out to this community because I'm at a loss for what to do next. Have any of you faced similar challenges in your relationships, where careers and personal lives seem to collide in such a way? How did you find the balance, or at least peace within the chaos? Are there strategies or perspectives I might be missing, something that helped you rekindle connection and understanding? Perhaps I'm simply venting, needing to unburden myself of these emotions. But if there's a chance that someone can offer a fresh perspective or a glimmer of hope, I'm willing to listen and learn. Maybe there's wisdom in shared experiences that can illuminate the path I'm struggling to find. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. I'm grateful for any insights or support you might offer as I continue to navigate this challenging chapter in my life. I'm hopeful that with guidance and time, Sarah and I can find a way to honor both our careers and our relationship, crafting a future that feels fulfilling for both of us.